Most people quit too soon, not because they failed, not because the dream was impossible, not because they lacked talent. They quit because they could not see the growth. And that may be the biggest mistake of all. Think about that. Many people believe growth should be visible. They believe effort should create immediate results. They believe hard work should quickly produce rewards. But life rarely works that way. The greatest changes often happen in silence. The strongest foundations are built out of sight. And the most important growth is often invisible at first. Imagine a seed. You place it in the ground. You cover it with soil. You water it. Then you wait. One day passes. Nothing happens. A week passes. Nothing happens. A month passes. Still nothing. The ground looks exactly the same. Now imagine two people standing beside that patch of soil. The first person says, "This isn't working." Then they walk away. The second person keeps watering, keeps waiting, keeps believing. Months later, only one of them sees a tree. Life often works exactly like that. Many people leave during the invisible stage, not because growth stopped, because growth could not yet be seen. Think about learning English. The first few days feel exciting. You learn new words. You understand new sentences. Everything feels fresh. Then something changes. Progress becomes slower. At least it seems slower. You still forget words. You still make mistakes. You still need subtitles. And a dangerous thought appears. Maybe I am not improving. But what if you are? What if the growth is happening beneath the surface? Imagine a child growing taller. No parent stands beside a wall every hour to check. Why? Because growth takes time. Everyone understands this when it comes to children. Yet many people forget it when it comes to themselves. They expect confidence in a week, results in a month, success in a year. And when those things do not arrive, they become discouraged. Imagine planting an apple tree. Would you expect apples next week? Of course not. Would you expect apples next month? No. You understand that trees need time. Roots need time. Growth needs time. Why should your dreams be different? Think about that. Now imagine two men learning to play the piano. The first man practices for 2 months, then quits. The second man practices for 5 years. Not perfectly, not every day, but consistently. Who becomes skilled? The answer is obvious. Yet every day people quit goals that simply need more time. Not because the goal is wrong, because they are impatient. And patience is becoming harder than ever. Why? Because we live in a world of instant results. Food arrives quickly. Movies start instantly. Messages arrive in seconds. Answers appear with a single search. Everything feels fast. Everything feels immediate. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin expecting life to move at the same speed. We want quick success, quick change, quick growth, quick answers. But life follows different rules. Nature follows different rules. Imagine a river. The river never rushes. It never panics. It never asks, "Why am I not at the ocean yet?" It simply keeps moving, day after day, season after season, year after year, and eventually it reaches the sea. There is wisdom in that. The river succeeds because it continues, not because it hurries. Imagine a mountain. The mountain was not built overnight. Imagine a forest. The forest did not appear in a year. Imagine a canyon. The canyon was not carved in a month. Some of the most beautiful things on earth exist because they moved slowly, not despite it, because of it. And perhaps your life works the same way. Perhaps the things that matter most require time. More time than you hoped. More time than you expected. More time than you wanted. But time is not always the enemy. Sometimes time is the tool. Now imagine a marathon. Thousands of people stand at the starting line. Everyone feels excited. Everyone feels strong. Everyone believes they can finish. The race begins. The crowd cheers. Energy fills the air. For the first few miles, everything feels wonderful. Then reality arrives. The excitement fades. The finish line remains far away. The body becomes tired. The mind becomes tired. And suddenly the race feels different. This is where many people quit. Not at the beginning. Not near the end. In the middle. The middle is where patience is tested. Think about that. The beginning is exciting. The ending is rewarding. The middle is where character is built. And most of life happens in the middle. A student learning English lives in the middle. An athlete training for years lives in the middle. A business owner building something meaningful lives in the middle. A person changing their life lives in the middle. The middle often feels boring, repetitive, slow, but the middle is where growth happens. And perhaps that is why so many people miss it. Because they are looking for excitement, while growth quietly happens in ordinary days. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this. The days that feel ordinary are often the days changing your life. And that brings us to a remarkable story. The story of the bamboo tree. At first it sounds impossible, almost like a myth. Imagine planting a bamboo seed. You prepare the soil. You water it. You take care of it. Then you wait. A month passes. Nothing happens. 6 months pass. Still nothing. A year passes. The ground looks exactly the same. No tall plant. No sign of success. No reward for your effort. Just soil. Imagine how frustrating that would feel. Every morning you wake up. Every morning you water the same patch of ground. And every morning it looks unchanged. Many people would quit. Many people would decide the seed had failed. Many people would stop believing. Not because they were weak, because they could not see what was happening. Think about that. How often do we judge something before it has enough time to grow? How often do we leave too early? How often do we stop when we should continue? The bamboo tree teaches an important lesson. Something is happening. Even when nothing appears to be happening, beneath the ground, the roots are growing, spreading, strengthening, preparing. The bamboo is building a foundation, and foundations are rarely exciting. Nobody celebrates the roots. People celebrate the height. People celebrate the success. People celebrate the result. But the result exists because of the roots. Now imagine a builder constructing a house. Would you become angry because the workers are building the foundation? Would you say, "Where is the roof? Where are the windows? Why is this taking so long?" Of course not. You understand that strong houses require strong foundations. Yet many people refuse to give themselves the same patience. They start learning a skill, then become frustrated after a few weeks. They start exercising, then become discouraged after a month. They start a business, then panic when success does not arrive immediately. They want the roof before the foundation is finished. Life rarely works that way. Now imagine a young woman learning English. For 6 months, she studies every day. Some days are good. Some days are difficult. Some days she feels progress. Other days she feels completely stuck. One evening she becomes frustrated. She says, "I've been studying for months. I should be much better by now." But should she? Compared to what? Compared to whom? Growth is not a race. Growth is a process. And every process has its own pace. Think about a baby learning to walk. No one expects a baby to run after a few days. No one becomes angry because progress is slow. Everyone understands that learning takes time. Mistakes take time. Growth takes time. Why should adults be any different? Now imagine a farmer standing in a field during winter. The trees are bare. The ground is cold. Nothing seems alive. To an outsider, the field looks empty, lifeless, still, but the farmer knows better. The farmer understands that winter is not death. Winter is preparation. Spring is coming. The growth is hidden for now. But hidden does not mean gone. There is wisdom in that. Sometimes your life feels like winter. Progress seems invisible. Results seem distant. Nothing exciting appears to be happening. But perhaps the roots are growing. Perhaps something important is being prepared. Perhaps this quiet season is serving a purpose. Now imagine two people. The first person sees slow progress and quits. The second person sees slow progress and continues. 5 years later, their lives look very different. Not because one person was smarter. Not because one person was luckier. Because one person stayed. That is all. They stayed. They kept showing up. They kept taking the next step. And over time, that simple decision changed everything. Many people underestimate the power of staying. They believe success comes from dramatic action. Sometimes it does. But more often, success comes from ordinary effort repeated for a very long time. One lesson, one workout, one page, one conversation, one day, then another, then another. Now imagine a stone cutter. Every day he strikes a massive rock with a hammer. One strike. Nothing happens. 10 strikes. Nothing happens. 20 strikes. Still nothing. 50 strikes. The rock remains unchanged. To anyone watching, the effort seems pointless. The stone cutter keeps working. 60 strikes. 70 strikes. 80 strikes. 90 strikes. Still nothing. Then the 100th strike arrives. The rock suddenly cracks in two. People watching point to the final strike. They say, "That was the one." But was it? Or was it all 100 strikes working together? The rock did not break because of one moment. The rock broke because someone refused to stop. Life often works exactly like that. And perhaps that is why patience is so powerful. Because patience allows effort to accumulate. Day after day, month after month, year after year, until one day what seemed impossible suddenly becomes possible. But if patience is so important, why do so many people struggle to practice it? The answer may have less to do with patience itself, and more to do with the world we live in today. Imagine waking up 100 years ago. No smartphone, no social media, no streaming videos, no instant messages, no endless notifications. Life moved more slowly. A letter could take days, sometimes weeks. Information traveled slowly. News traveled slowly. People waited, not because they wanted to, because they had to. Now think about today. You send a message. It arrives instantly. You want information. You find it in seconds. You want entertainment. Thousands of videos appear immediately. You want food. Someone brings it to your door. The world has become very fast. And that is not always a bad thing. But every environment teaches lessons. And modern life teaches one lesson over and over again. Do not wait. Get it now. Think about that. Every day we hear the same message. Faster, quicker, instant, immediate. Soon we begin expecting life itself to work that way. We expect skills to grow quickly. We expect success to arrive quickly. We expect change to happen quickly. And when it doesn't, we become frustrated. Not because growth is slow, because our expectations are too fast. Now imagine a young man learning guitar. The first week is exciting. The second week is exciting too. But after 3 months, reality arrives. His fingers still make mistakes. The songs still sound rough. The progress feels small. Meanwhile, he opens his phone. He sees someone playing beautifully. Someone who makes it look easy. Someone who seems naturally talented. What he does not see are the years behind that performance. The practice, the frustration, the repetition, the mistakes. He sees the result, not the journey. And suddenly his own progress feels disappointing. This happens everywhere, not just with music, with language learning, with fitness, with careers, with business, with life itself. People compare their beginning to someone else's middle, or their middle to someone else's ending. Then they wonder why they feel discouraged. Imagine watching the final scene of a movie. The hero succeeds. The problem is solved. The story reaches its conclusion. Then imagine saying, I want that ending, without watching the rest of the movie, without the struggle, without the lessons, without the difficult parts. It sounds ridiculous, yet many people want success without the years that create it. Now imagine a farmer planting seeds. The next morning he runs outside. Nothing. The next day he checks again. Nothing. The next day. Nothing. Eventually he becomes impatient. So he digs up the seed to see what is happening. What happens next? The seed dies. The farmer's impatience destroys the very thing he wanted to grow. There is a lesson hidden there, a powerful lesson. Some things grow better when you stop checking every 5 minutes. Think about social media. Think about followers, views, likes, numbers. Many people measure progress every day, sometimes every hour. They stare at the numbers, waiting for proof, waiting for validation, waiting for evidence that their effort matters. But growth rarely works on command. A tree does not grow faster because you stare at it. A skill does not improve faster because you worry about it. A dream does not arrive faster because you check its progress every hour. Now imagine a person trying to lose weight. Every morning they step on a scale. Some days the number moves. Some days it doesn't. Some days it moves in the wrong direction. Soon they become frustrated, discouraged, ready to quit. But imagine instead they focus on daily habits. Walking, eating well, sleeping better, month after month, year after year. The results eventually appear, because habits matter more than daily measurements. Life often works exactly the same way. Focus on the work, not the scoreboard. Focus on the process, not the result. Focus on today's effort, not tomorrow's reward. Now imagine an old watchmaker sitting in his workshop. A young man walks in. The young man looks frustrated. "I've been working hard," he says, "but nothing seems to be happening." The watchmaker nods. Then he picks up an old clock. Tick, tick, tick. The clock moves slowly, almost too slowly to notice. The watchmaker smiles. Then he says, "The clock never worries. It never rushes. It simply keeps moving." The young man looks confused. The watchmaker continues, and somehow, it always reaches the next hour. Think about that. The clock reaches the next hour, not through speed, not through panic, not through comparison, through consistency, 1 second at a time. And perhaps that is the secret most people miss. The people who accomplish great things are rarely the people who move the fastest. They are often the people who refuse to stop, the people who keep showing up, the people who keep learning, the people who keep moving forward, even when progress feels invisible, even when results are slow, even when nobody notices. And that brings us to one of the hardest parts of any journey, the season when nothing seems to be happening at all. Imagine a farmer standing in a field during winter. The trees are bare. The sky is gray. The ground feels cold and lifeless. There are no flowers, no fruit, no signs of growth. To a stranger, the field looks abandoned, empty, forgotten. But the farmer sees something different. The farmer knows that winter is part of the process. The farmer does not panic. The farmer does not dig up the roots. The farmer does not abandon the field. The farmer waits. Because the farmer understands something important. Not every season is meant for harvest. Think about that. Many people expect every season of life to feel productive. Every month should bring results. Every week should bring progress. Every day should feel meaningful. But life does not work that way. Some seasons are for planting. Some seasons are for growing. Some seasons are for resting, and some seasons are simply for enduring. Now imagine a young woman learning English. The first year feels exciting. Everything is new. Everything is improving. Then she reaches a strange stage. She understands more than before, but not enough. She speaks better than before, but not fluently. She feels stuck, as if she is standing still. Weeks pass, then months. Nothing seems different. This stage has a name among language learners. The plateau. A flat place? A place where growth becomes difficult to see. Many people quit here, not because they stopped improving, because they stopped noticing the improvement. Think about a sunrise. You do not see the sun jump into the sky. The change happens slowly, minute by minute, so slowly that you barely notice. Then suddenly the world is bright. Growth often works exactly the same way. Now imagine a man going to the gym. For months he trains. The first few weeks are exciting, then progress becomes slower. The mirror looks the same. The scale barely moves. His motivation begins to disappear. A voice inside his head starts asking questions. Why bother? Is this even working? Maybe I'm wasting my time. The voice sounds convincing, because the results are hidden. What he cannot see is that his body is still changing. Slowly, quietly, one day at a time. The process continues even when the rewards are invisible. Life often works that way. Now imagine digging a well. You dig for one day. No water. You dig for 1 week. No water. You dig for 1 month. Still no water. At this point, many people quit. Not because water isn't there, because they are tired of not seeing it. But what if the water's only a few feet away? What if success is just beyond the point where most people stop? Think about that. How many dreams disappear because people quit one season too early? How many goals are abandoned just before the breakthrough? How many lives stay the same because someone walked away when they should have stayed? Now imagine two people building a wall. Every day they place one brick. The first person becomes frustrated. One brick is nothing. The second person keeps building. Day after day, week after week, year after year. Eventually, one person has a wall. The other has excuses. The difference was never the brick. The difference was patience. Now imagine an old gardener sitting beneath a tree. A young man walks up to him. The young man looks discouraged. I've worked so hard, he says, but nothing is changing. The gardener smiles, then points toward the tree above them. The young man looks up. The tree is enormous, strong, beautiful. The gardener asks, how long do you think this tree took to grow? The young man shrugs. The gardener nods, then says, longer than anyone wanted, but not longer than it needed. The young man becomes quiet, because deep down he understands. Many things take exactly as long as they need to take. Not longer, not shorter. Think about a child learning to walk. Think about a tree growing. Think about a river reaching the sea. None of them rush. None of them panic. None of them compare their speed to someone else's. They simply continue. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside the quiet season. The season when nothing seems to be happening. The season when progress feels invisible. The season when quitting feels tempting. Keep going. Keep learning. Keep showing up. Because the quiet season is often where the strongest roots are formed. And the people who survive the quiet season often discover something remarkable. The breakthrough they were waiting for was never built in one moment. It was built during all the ordinary days they almost gave up on. And that leads us to another trap. A trap that destroys patience for countless people. The trap of measuring progress too often. Imagine planting a seed, then digging it up every morning. You want to see if it is growing. You want proof. You want evidence. You want results. So every day you dig, every day you check, every day you interrupt the process. Eventually the seed dies, not because it lacked potential, because it was never given the chance to grow. Think about that. Many people treat their lives the same way. They cannot stop checking results, checking numbers, checking progress, checking whether they have arrived yet. And every time they look, they become frustrated. Not because they are failing, because they are expecting change too quickly. Now imagine a man learning English. Every day he asks himself, "Am I fluent yet?" No. The next day, "Am I fluent yet?" No. A week later, "Am I fluent yet?" Still no. Soon he becomes discouraged. The question itself becomes the problem. Because fluency is not built in days. It is built in months, years, thousands of small moments. Now imagine asking a tree every day, "Are you tall yet?" The question sounds ridiculous. Yet many people ask themselves the same question in different forms. Am I successful yet? Am I confident yet? Am I better yet? Am I there yet? And because the answer is often not yet, they become discouraged. But not yet is not failure. Not yet simply means the story is still being written. Think about that. Now imagine a person trying to save money. The first day they save $1. The second day another dollar. The third day another. If they stare at their savings every hour, they will feel disappointed. The amount looks small, almost meaningless. But come back 5 years later. The story looks very different. Small actions become powerful when given enough time. The problem is that patience and measurement often fight each other. The more you measure, the slower progress feels. The less you obsess, the more progress accumulates. Now imagine watching the minute hand on a clock. Stare at it. Watch it closely. For a long time, it seems frozen, almost motionless. Nothing appears to happen. But leave the room. Come back later. The hand has moved. Time has passed. Progress has happened. Many goals work exactly the same way. Growth feels invisible when you stare at it. Growth becomes obvious when you give it space. Now imagine a young woman trying to lose weight. She steps on a scale every morning. Some days the number goes down. Some days it stays the same. Some days it goes up. Each number controls her mood. Each number controls her motivation. Soon she becomes exhausted. Not from the work, from the measuring, Eventually, she decides to focus on different things: healthy meals, daily walks, good sleep, consistent habits. Month after month, she keeps going, and something surprising happens. The results arrive when she stops chasing them. Think about that. Sometimes the best way to grow is to focus on the process instead of the outcome. Now imagine an artist painting a picture. Every brushstroke seems insignificant. One small line, one small color, one tiny detail. Nothing impressive, nothing dramatic. But after hundreds of brushstrokes, a masterpiece begins to appear. Imagine stopping after every stroke and asking, "Is it finished yet?" The question misses the point. The picture is being created. The process itself is the progress. Life often works the same way. Now imagine an old fisherman sitting beside a river. A young man approaches. The young man looks frustrated. "I've been trying for months," he says, "and I still don't see enough progress." The fisherman smiles, then points toward the river. The water moves slowly, calmly, patiently. The fisherman asks, "Do you think the river worries about reaching the ocean?" The young man laughs. "Of course not." The fisherman nods. "Then why do you worry so much about reaching your destination?" The young man becomes quiet, because deep down he knows the answer. He has been staring at the distance instead of appreciating the journey. Many people do exactly that. They focus so much on the finish line that they forget to notice how far they have already come. Now think about your own life. How often do you measure yourself? How often do you compare today's results to tomorrow's dreams? How often do you ignore your progress because it feels too small? Think about that. Because small progress is still progress. A single page is progress. A single workout is progress. A single lesson is progress. A single step is progress. And enough small steps can take you anywhere. The people who succeed are not always the most talented. They are not always the smartest. Often they are simply the people who keep taking the next step without constantly asking if they have arrived, without constantly digging up the seed, without constantly staring at the clock. They trust the process. They trust the work. And slowly, almost without noticing, their lives begin to change. But there is one more lesson patience teaches. Perhaps the most beautiful lesson of all. Because patience does more than help you reach a goal. Patience changes the person walking toward it. Think about a mountain climber. At first, the climber wants one thing: the summit, the view from the top, the feeling of success. That is all. But something interesting happens during the climb. The mountain begins to change the climber. Each difficult step builds strength. Each obstacle builds confidence. Each challenge builds character. By the time the climber reaches the summit, they are no longer the same person who started the journey. The mountain gave them more than a view. It gave them growth. Life often works exactly the same way. Now imagine a young man learning English. When he begins, he wants to speak fluently. That is his goal. That is what he dreams about. But over the years, something else happens. He becomes more disciplined, more patient, more willing to make mistakes, more willing to keep trying. The language changes him, not just his ability, his character. Think about that. Sometimes the goal is not the greatest reward. Sometimes the person you become is the greatest reward. Now imagine a blacksmith making a sword. The metal enters the fire. Then comes the hammer. Again, and again, and again. The process looks harsh, uncomfortable, difficult. Yet the blacksmith understands something important. The fire is not destroying the metal. The fire is shaping it. Many difficult seasons in life work the same way. The delay, the setback, the slow progress, the waiting. These things often feel like punishment, but sometimes they are preparation. Sometimes life is shaping you for what comes next. Now imagine an old oak tree standing in a field. People admire its size, its strength, its beauty, but they rarely think about the storms, the strong winds, the heavy rain, the difficult winters. Those challenges helped create the tree they admire. Without those storms, the roots would not be as deep. Without those storms, the tree would not be as strong. There is wisdom in that. The difficult seasons are often building something inside you, even when you cannot see it. Now imagine two people. Both face the same challenge. Both experience the same delay. Both become frustrated. The first person quits. The second person stays. Years later, their lives look completely different. Not because the second person avoided difficulty, because they allowed difficulty to teach them something. Patience, strength, persistence, the qualities that often matter most. Think about your own life. Look back for a moment. Think about a challenge you once faced. At the time, it felt terrible, unfair, frustrating, something you wanted to escape. But what happened afterward? Did you learn something? Did you become stronger? Did you become wiser? Many people discover that their hardest seasons taught them their most valuable lessons. Not immediately, only later. Now imagine a river once more. The river keeps moving. Through forests, across valleys, around rocks, past obstacles. The journey changes the landscape, but the journey also changes the river. Each mile shapes its path. Each turn shapes its direction. The destination matters, but so does the journey. Perhaps more than we realize. Now imagine an old man sitting beneath a tree he planted many years ago. The tree is large now, strong, beautiful. The man smiles as he looks at it. Not because it grew quickly. It didn't. Not because it was easy. It wasn't. He smiles because he stayed. Because he kept watering. Because he trusted the process. Because he was patient. And perhaps that is what patience really is. Not waiting. Not hoping. Not wishing. Patience is continuing. Patience is showing up when progress is slow. Patience is taking the next step when results are invisible. Patience is believing that today's effort matters, even when today's rewards are nowhere to be seen. And that brings us to one final question. A question every person must answer for themselves. When the progress is slow, when the road is long, when the results are hidden, will you keep going? Think about that. Because sooner or later, every person reaches that moment. The moment when quitting feels reasonable. The moment when stopping feels easier. The moment when nobody would blame you for walking away. That is the moment that matters most. Not the easy days, not the exciting days, the difficult days. Now imagine a runner deep into a marathon. The crowd is gone. The excitement is gone. The starting line is far behind. The finish line is still far ahead. No one is cheering. No one is watching. Only the runner remains. And a choice. Keep going or stop. Life often feels exactly like that. Many of the most important moments happen when nobody is watching, when there is no applause, no reward, no recognition, just you and your decision. Think about a student studying late at night. Nobody sees it. Think about a person waking up early to exercise. Nobody sees it. Think about someone practicing English every day. One lesson, one page, one conversation. Nobody sees it. But those moments matter, perhaps more than any other moments, because those are the moments that build the future. Now imagine two builders. Every day they carry stones, heavy stones, one stone at a time. The work is slow. The progress is hard to see. The first builder becomes frustrated. This is taking too long. The second builder says nothing. He simply carries another stone, and another, and another. Years later, one builder has a bridge. The other has a pile of unfinished plans. The difference was not talent. The difference was patience. Now imagine an old watchmaker. Every day he works on tiny parts, small gears, small springs, small pieces. The progress seems insignificant. A few minutes of work, then a few more, then a few more. But eventually, the watch begins to move. Tick, tick, tick. A working watch is built from thousands of tiny actions. A meaningful life is built the same way. One choice, one habit, one step, repeated over time. Think about that. Many people are looking for a breakthrough. One big moment, one big change, one big success. But most lives change differently. Quietly, slowly, almost invisibly, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. Now imagine standing in a forest. You look around, huge trees everywhere, strong trees, tall trees, beautiful trees. Then you remember something. Every one of those trees began as a seed. Small, fragile, easy to overlook. If someone had judged the seed too early, they would have missed the tree. If someone had stopped watering too early, they would have missed the tree. If someone had lost patience too early, they would have missed the tree. How many people miss the tree because they leave during the seed stage? Think about that. Now imagine yourself 5 years from today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. 5 years. Imagine the version of you that kept going. The version that stayed patient. The version that kept learning. Kept growing. Kept showing up. Even on difficult days. What does that person look like? What can that person do? How much stronger are they? How much wiser? How much more confident? That future version of you is being built right now. Today. Not someday. Today. With each choice. With each habit. With each small step. The future is not built in a single moment. It is built in ordinary moments, the moments most people ignore, the moments most people underestimate, the moments patient people understand. Now think about your own life. Maybe the results are slow. Maybe the progress feels invisible. Maybe the road feels longer than expected. That does not mean you are failing. It may mean you are growing. The roots are growing. The foundation is growing. The future is growing. Even if you cannot see it yet. Keep going. Keep learning. Keep showing up. Trust the next step. Trust today's effort. Trust the process. Because the greatest things in life often take longer than expected. But they are worth the wait. And one day you may look back and realize something surprising. The thing you thought you were waiting for was quietly being built all along. Think about that. Many people spend years looking for a sign that they are improving, a sign that their effort matters, a sign that they are moving in the right direction. But sometimes the sign arrives much later. Sometimes it arrives after years of ordinary work, years of showing up, years of taking the next step, years of continuing when quitting seemed easier. Now imagine an old man walking through a forest. The trees are enormous, strong, beautiful. Their branches reach toward the sky. As he walks, he remembers something. Many years ago, he planted some of those trees himself. At the time, they were tiny, easy to miss, easy to ignore. People walked past them without noticing. Some even laughed. They seemed insignificant. But time changed everything. The small became large. The weak became strong. The invisible became impossible to ignore. Life often works exactly that way. What feels small today may become powerful tomorrow. What feels insignificant today may shape your future. What feels ordinary today may become one of the most important things you ever do. Think about the people who inspire you, the people you admire, the people who seem wise, strong, confident, patient. They were not born that way. They became that way, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one difficult moment at a time. The person you want to become is built exactly the same way, not through one great decision, through many small decisions, repeated again and again. Now imagine two clocks. One clock runs fast. The other moves at the proper pace. At first, the fast clock seems better. It races ahead. It looks impressive. But eventually, it becomes wrong. The slower clock remains steady, reliable, accurate, patient. And in the end, it reaches the right place. There is wisdom in that. Life is not a race to move the fastest. Life is a journey of continuing long enough to learn, long enough to grow, long enough to become who you are meant to become. Now think about your own life. Maybe there is something you have been working on, something that feels slow, something that feels difficult, something that feels uncertain. Do not judge it too early. Do not abandon it too early. Do not walk away from it too early. Give it time. Give it effort. Give it patience. A seed needs time. A tree needs time. A river needs time. And sometimes so do you. Keep going. When the progress feels small, keep going. When the results feel invisible, keep going. When the road feels long, keep going. Not because success is guaranteed, but because growth is happening. Even now, even today, even in this moment. The roots are growing. The foundation is growing. The future is growing. And one day you will see what today's patience was building. One day the lessons will make sense. One day the effort will make sense. One day the waiting will make sense. Until then, trust the next step. Trust today's work. Trust the process. And most importantly, trust yourself enough to continue. Because most people quit too soon. Do not be one of them. Stay. Learn. Grow. Continue. The future belongs to those who keep going when the results are still hidden. And perhaps that is the true power of patience. Not the ability to wait, but the courage to continue while you wait. See you in the next story.